am so honored and delighted to be here at this incredibly historic moment in the life of SEIU Local 500. And I want to honor Merle's leadership in this union. I have had a chance to get her know her better as president of the union because we met each other through the International Executive Board over the past decade or so, but in this role as president, I've had the privilege of learning three things about her. She is a woman of courage. She is willing to speak truth in meetings when it needs to be said. She is a woman of conviction, and this opening of this makes me realize her deep conviction in bringing out the best in every leader in this union and making sure that we knit that power together. And she is a woman of compassion and has incredible insight about how in this time, as the right-wing opposition targets public service, how we can stand up and realize that what public service means in this country is that we are going to insist that there is a common good for all people in this country. And I thank her for her leadership on those three. I came today to sort of frame the agenda that our union has decided to lead on in this fall. I want to then get your reaction to whether you think we're on the right track as a union, and then I thought I would close in this next 30 minutes with you. And I am deeply grateful that Merle acknowledged the local union executive board here, because this executive board, you can all be incredibly proud of the decisions this board made many moons ago as the Montgomery County Public School group made a decision to use the power of the public school workers that were part of the history of this union to reach out and embrace Head Start workers, family child care providers, the higher education workers. I just want to acknowledge and have us all appreciate that the vision of this executive board in expanding the leadership of this union. Thank you all very much. And then I also wanted you to know that this is the first time that each of the members of the various divisions have been together in the same room, which I heard you all kind of act surprised when half of the room was Montgomery County Public Schools from the other parts of the union. So I think that's really important that we are gathered here today to hear from the member leaders about the attacks that each of you are experiencing in each part of the service that you provide in every day. And then we know as a union, and have been looking in the past 2 years about the increasing attack on public employees, teachers, school workers. You're nodding your heads. You know that that's at the top, but we are not letting that deter us. We are not letting that depress us. We are standing up for America's school workers, nurses, firefighters, and we are making a decision to launch a fight back all across this country. And your victories in tough times remind me of the perseverance that it took to build the Service Employees International Union. And that story starts with a man named William Kesey. He was a janitor. He cleaned apartment buildings on the south side of Chicago in 1902. His day started at 5 in the morning and ended about 10 p.m. at night with no days off. 7 days a week, 365 days a year, he cleaned, he scrubbed, and he painted. If a tenant had a single problem with him, he could be fired on the spot. And if there was too much work for him to finish, his wife had to pitch in too, for free. For that, he was paid $20 a month. William Kesey knew he deserved better. And just like a conversation I was having with Bob when we were having coffee, William Kesey one day decided that he had had enough. He called together 200 other janitors and he asked a simple question. Should we band together and form a union to fight for a better life? The janitors all said yes, and when they did, it started a firestorm. Tenant owners tried to intimidate them. The politicians in Chicago targeted them. The media said they were nothing more than servants. And they called the idea that their work had value laughable. They were, as one columnist put it, the people that God forgot. But they stood together. They marched together. They won together again and again. And a few years later, William Kesey was asked, of all the things that he'd won, better pay, shorter hours, better working conditions, what was the thing that meant the most to him? He thought for a moment and then answered what he was proudest of with a single word: respect. You and I each know deep in our bones that respect. His work had value, that his life, his job had value. And I share that story of William Kesey because you and I both know that the values that this union was built on, with his individual act of courage, is what we live by today. There are people in this room who made a decision to stick their necks out and fight for a better life, and you made it possible for this union to grow from 6,500 members in Montgomery County Public Schools to the 15,000 that you represent today. And those values, sticking our necks out, making a decision to fight for a better life, is what unites the fabric of our union. It's what brings janitors, security officers, healthcare workers, and public service workers together with a common purpose. It's how school support workers, Head Start teachers, college faculty, nonprofit professionals, and countless other workers have built the strength of our union. And what your union, SEIU Local 500, has accomplished speaks to the power of SEIU members stepping up and answering the call of leadership. 10 years ago, your executive board made the decision to transform your local to a union committed to uniting public service employees throughout Maryland and Washington, D.C. Today, you represent 15,000 SEIU members in over 350 work sites, plus the homes of all the family child care providers. Your victory at George Washington was the largest private sector university victory for part-time faculty in years. There were 400 developmental disability workers who won a union voice through your breakthrough at community services for autistic adults and children. And just this year, for the first time, you've elected 200 new SEIU representative member leaders in the Montgomery County Public School System. Leaders who will problem solve, communicate the program of the union, and lead every day to build the strength of the Montgomery Public School System from the inside out. And you just won a contract that protects the rates for child care providers in a tough economy with the state of Maryland. Merle, if I could tell you that when I met Governor O'Malley, I went up to him and said, we are incredibly proud of the settlement that was just achieved with family child care providers. And we see this as the first step in building a long relationship where we really address the professionalism of family child care providers in Maryland and throughout the country. So hats off to you for that incredible work. That work is in no small measure to the work that you've done systematically in building the Committee on Political Education and getting each and every one of your coworkers to voluntarily contribute to build the strength of our members' political voice in this state and across the country. Maryland was one of only 5 states that actually increased the number of pro-worker family candidates in this past election. And you did that while also holding elected officials accountable and taking out 6 sitting senators that didn't support you, were trying to take you for granted, and you sent a message loud and clear that either you stand with us and do what's right for working families in this country, or we're going to take you out. And hats off to you, because we need to do that across the union. Together, each and every one of you lead in tough times. Together, each and every one of you make the impossible possible. And those same values that brought us together to fight for our vision for America. An America where if you work hard for a living, one good job supports your family, guarantees your health care, where you can retire with dignity, and where children are guaranteed a safe, just, and better future. We do not think that's too much to ask for work in America. And the truth is, if everyone in this room, everyone in our union, students, seniors, non-union workers, and countless others here in Maryland and across our country are ready to make that vision for America a reality. You and I both know how powerful America can be when we work together. I've lived it, as Merle said in my introduction. I grew up just outside of Detroit in a family of 10 children. It was a time when the United Auto Workers built entire communities and where public services were invested in through taxes that everybody paid. But today, things have changed. And when I return to Michigan, my 23 nieces and nephews tell me how worried they are about their future. Worried if they'll ever be able to get a job and reach their dreams. You know we need jobs in America, but jobs alone are not going to change the course of history and give my nieces and nephews and all of us a better future. We don't just need jobs in this country, we need good jobs with justice. We refuse to believe that those kinds of jobs cannot be a strong part of our country's future. And one of the problems with America today is that we have too many people making money on Wall Street. We have too many job-killing corporations like Verizon, a company that reported $24 billion, I don't know how to even imagine how many zeros that is, but $24 billion in profits over the past 2 years. They have not paid a dime in tax, not 1 cent in tax, and still they managed to cut 20% of their U.S. workforce. You want to talk about jobs? There are jobs in manufacturing. When Amazon first designed the Kindle, they wanted to build it in America. And they looked for more than a year across the country for a partner who would help them build the LCD-like screen that's on the cover of the Kindle. And they couldn't find a single company in the United States to make that product. That's wrong. If American genius helped design this product, American labor should build this product right here in America. You want to talk about jobs? The global green energy movement is expected to create 20 million jobs in the next 20 years. And the question we confront as a nation is, will those jobs be in the United States of America, or will they be in some other country in the world where Siemens can find the factories necessary to build the wind turbines? And we should be creating those jobs right here in America. You want to talk about jobs? There's jobs in healthcare. We need 3.2 million more healthcare givers in the next 5 years in our country. There is work that needs doing in every city and town in this country. And I'm sure the MCPS workers know of schools that could be fixed right now and get people back to work. At SEIU and all across North America, we are saying enough is enough. We cannot continue down this path as a nation. It's time to stand up and fight. It's time for people of this country to come together in a real grassroots movement for change. And I'm not talking about that angry movement of people that's funded and organized by corporate fund groups. We've already got the Tea Party for that. I'm talking about a real change movement that returns power to the only place that's ever driven real social change, the people. The question for us today is the same one that was asked to build our union by William Kesey. Are we willing to band together to fight for a better life? And that's why our union has invested in our fight for a fair economy, to educate SEIU members about who really broke the economy, to grow our member leaders in the way that SEIU Local 400 is systematically trying to reach out and put more member leaders in the room like this, to have a discussion like the way you are doing it today, and then to make a commitment to each other to stand up and fight for a better country, to reach out to non-union workers like never before, and to link arms across the labor movement with students, with other community organizations, and to make sure that we share and fight for our vision for America. And we are changing the national conversation in this country through a massive demand for good jobs, and through the 2012 elections and beyond. SEIU members linked arms with communities and put pressure on members of Congress over the August recess. I hope you all heard stories of the ways in which, when all cuts members of Congress wanted to say that that was the way to get our economy going again, was to continue to cut education, healthcare, we said no. And we moved into their offices, we followed them to their golf outings, and we changed the debate in Washington and across America from cutting spending of government to creating jobs for everybody in this country. And today we are marching arm in arm with the protesters across the country as the Occupy Wall Street movement grows. And this fall, from Rockville, Maryland, to Las Vegas, Nevada, and everywhere in between and all around, we need to make a demand on 4 things. We want good jobs now. This country has plenty of resource. We just need to make a decision to invest in our people and get people back to work. Everyone needs to pay their fair share. It is not okay that Verizon and Chevron and Exxon and a whole bunch of other corporations that are making record profits are not paying 1 cent in tax. And no more cuts to our safety net, to our social programs, to the education of our children. We need to reinvest in all those parts of the public service in this country to establish the common good and equal opportunity for all. And then the 4th part of our agenda is that we believe every immigrant deserves an opportunity to have a pathway to citizenship, and we are not going to allow immigrant workers to get scapegoated in an economy where we need justice for everyone. So Merle asked me at this point if I would pause and see what your reaction to this agenda is. That when you think about how much we need to turn our country around, and later in the day you're going to talk about a vision for America, do you agree that these 4 demands are what we should be pounding on with the public school systems, with the governor of Maryland, with the Congress in Washington, with every employer in this country? Should we be making the demand, good jobs now, everybody pays their fair share, no more cuts, and justice for immigrants? Oh, it looks like yes. So what do people think?
I just have a quick question. I'm happy you brought it up. Was the Occupy Wall Street movement?
Yeah.
There's such an energy there, and it's not concentrated toward goals yet. And I know organized unions, not just us, but others I've been reading about, are kind of like waiting on the sideline because we want it to be from the people. So we don't want to say that this is union driven, but is there some plan to help channel that, to help them focus their demands, to focus their energy, because they're like all over the board and everybody's kind of hovering, waiting. What are they going to come and ask for?
Well, I'm interested in what other people think about this question. The current idea in my head is the gift that Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Baltimore, Occupy Washington, D.C., the gift that those leaders, in my mind, have given us is they are making it crystal clear what the problem is. If anybody was confused last spring during the debt ceiling debate that the problem was too much government spending, everybody is crystal clear that the problem now is this huge inequality in our country, and that they've coined 99% as the way to describe that inequality. So the thing that we think we need to do in SEIU is adopt 99% as the way to describe the problem, and that it's our obligation to stand up and make our demands and see if we can get people to join in our demands without burdening them to have to be the only people that we're all waiting for to see what their demands are. Do you see what I'm saying? So we joined with civil rights activists and immigrants in Alabama when Alabama said that anybody that looked like they were an immigrant should be stopped and their papers checked. Have you heard about this?
Yes.
And kids are getting pulled out of schools and sent into the library so that they can have their, this is like insanity, right? So we are standing up and saying no to that. We don't wait for the occupiers in Birmingham to say, stop this, right? But the way to think about this is that we're all in it together, that Occupy has a role to beat the drum on what the problem is, and the rest of us have a role to say, here's how we get America back to work, here's a way to begin to address income inequality, and then I think as the General Assemblies in the Occupy parks around the country create demands, we can figure out how to give them lift as well. But I think our obligation inside of SEIU right now is to support the Occupy movements that are happening in cities and states where our members are, which local unions have been adopting those movements, helping with supplies. Some of our members have joined the movements and are spending the night, you know? And then but we also think we need to continue organizing based on what our members have said we need to prioritize. And that's why these 4 agenda demands make the most sense to us. And we have occupiers agreeing to join with us November 17th to 19th to shine a light on how we can rebuild schools, bridges, and roads and get 2.5 million people back to work in January if Congress would just pass the legislation to make it possible. So we think we have to keep pushing on creating concrete wins and demands. But I'm interested in hearing what other leaders in the room think about the question.
I rise in opposition to the 99. I went to New York 2 weeks ago. All my husband's family lives in New York and very close to the park. And it's turning people off because you see, it's not like they don't have a voice. They're all over the place. Some people think it's the hippies movement again. And so if I was a union leader, I will not put a name there with a 10-foot pole. It's going to be riots. It's going to backfire. In the weekend, you see all the people, yes, people like us that wanted to make a change. But we keep going because we have a job that whether we like it or not, we have a job.
Right.
These are kids that have homes, that most of them in New York, wealthy kids. So that when you show that on TV, and you see the real unemployed people in Detroit and other places starving, and so it doesn't, I don't think it's really sending the right message right now. It's just a crazy group of kids. Sometimes you see from time to time people like us, but in general, it doesn't look like we want to be with them now. I think the movement is being kidnapped, and these all feel-good people. I don't know.
I'm interested in people's reaction to there's 2 different things here. How many people think that the Occupy movement is something that we should support? And then how many people think that the Occupy movement is at risk of kind of heading off into...
Yeah, riots. I mean, we copy
how many
everybody.
people are worried about the future of the movement getting violent? Okay. So here's what I think. I think both concerns and opinions are legitimate. And the thing that's great about the union is that the union creates a vehicle for us to have this debate and discussion. The thing I want you to know is I'm concerned that right-wing opposition, some media, the House Republicans are going to fan the flames and put people in the park that will instigate. I'm a little worried about the instigation of violence in this because it is capturing the nation's attention. People are having this conversation. I have with people, my brother, my mother, everybody. We've certainly been having it a lot inside of SEIU. And I think the question for us is, do we agree there's a crisis for working people in this country?
Yes.
Do we agree that there's an emergency that we need to insist that our nation and employers deal with getting us back to work? Yes. So if we agree on those 2 things, I feel we have to use everything in our power to get a national conversation going to make us act as a country and not allow gridlock in Congress and petty fighting between the parties of our country to prohibit us responding. So my hope is that we can figure out how to use and galvanize the point that the Occupy movement is trying to tell the country. The greatest income inequality since the Depression is unacceptable. We are a great nation. We are capable of incredible things when we put our mind to it, and we need to call out the best in our country to make that happen. So I think the sense that we have is that we need to support the occupiers as continuing to be nonviolent and not allow occupiers to be scapegoated like immigrants are being scapegoated or like public employees are being scapegoated as the problem, because we are not the problem. Right? There is a much bigger problem in the country. Do you have a reaction?
Sorry. I'm a new member, but I think
And we are so grateful you're here. You are the host. You are the host.
I agree with both points, but I don't think we should attach ourselves to this particular movement because it's a large statement that we're doing internationally and nationwide. I agree with it. It's shedding light on things that people have been thinking about for a long time. But I was listening to how we was talking about increasing salary, quality of life for a lot of employees. And I've worked in healthcare for approximately 17 and a half years. And disenfranchised of Montgomery County School. I used to actually live in Montgomery. I live in Frederick now. And more land, that's what it is. But I worked in several positions, including management, that a lot of employees feel that they're disenfranchised because of the amount of workload that they receive. So depending on what company you work for, we've seen this everywhere, is that you might have a job description, but you might have 15 jobs. Okay, you can categorize that as your qualifications or certain wording to make sure that particular person gets a particular salary, okay? But unfortunately, I'm not a person who's bitter. I'm just saying this is how it's structured, even in America, that your executives get a certain amount of money, and then you warn about the lower people or direct care staff,
Right.
whatever level that is, you get a certain amount of pay, but you get X amount of positions. And there's not that many employees who actually are willing, especially young people, I'm 41, they say that I'm not willing to do X amount of positions for this particular salary. So either they're unemployed, they try to go to another job with lack of experience, which most companies want, versus just I'm out of school. And my biggest concern, even when I was in management, to be able to give that compensation for that company to say 35 cents for the cost of living, can I receive that, versus always putting it off and I cannot afford this for this year. Now, honestly, we know at times certain companies can afford it. Okay, but you keep that salary wage up at a certain area so you can, of course, juggle your sheets. That's your ability, whatever service you want to do. And I think that's something that we should focus on because that will help the quality of life. A lot of people who are disenfranchised because they say, I cannot afford X, Y, and Z because produce has gone up. Gas has gone up, which we know we can't totally control. But a lot of things go up, and then we say, why is that? But I cannot afford this because I have to place things on credit. And I think our country now, well, it's kind of funny, we're living in an area that we're living within our means because we never did live within our means. We always lived on credit. For the longest time. If you're talking about
A lot of people were, but I'm not going to say the people in this room probably weren't.
well, I was just saying nationwide, I said, when you purchase a household, my parents always said save a certain amount of money for a down payment for a house.
Right.
I was one of the lucky young people that my credit was good because I didn't, out of school, say I was going to get a credit card worth $2,000. My first credit card was $300 and I kept that. So when I purchased different houses, I had no problem getting a loan. But I'm talking about as a whole, you cannot just say I'm going to spend $35,000 for a car. You're going to have to get a car loan majority of the time. And I'm saying for a long period of time, we always live in credit, so now we have this huge crisis that we're living within our means. We cannot actually do the things that we used to do because no one's going to be able to spend that type of money.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's like a trickle-down effect. So,
The banks don't,
But-
we are living with our means
Now
because the
it's
banks
tightened
don't
up.
lend anymore.
Now they are. Now
So
they
we
are.
obligate.
Yeah, but
So
before this hit.
Right.
This is what happened. We always had to say, I need a TV. You're not gonna spend $2,000 for TV,
Right.
you're gonna put it on your credit card and pay it off in a year or so.
And then the other underlying thing that people know is workers' wages have not risen in our country since 1974,
Correct.
right? In 1974, how many workers, what percentage of the workforce was in unions?
No, it's a higher dollar.
74
Sorry.
dollars, still the auto industry
Right.
is large.
Yeah. So 30% of the workforce in our country was in unions in 1974. And if you watch the decline of unionization in the economy, you will see the wage flatline, right? So as workers lost their unions, right? Manufacturing left, textile left, steel, auto, right? Wages started to flatline and productivity kept increasing. And one of the ways working families dealt with that was to extend credit. You're right, but I just wanted to connect the credit crisis with the wage crisis. That low-wage jobs with no benefits were the only things that started getting created in our economy beginning in the 80s. So what we are facing now is a part of that crisis for working people, where you and I both know that the next generation, after scraping to get through college and now drowning in debt, have choices in minimum wage work, right? And that's part of the phenomenon. Did you want to add?
I just think that one of the reasons why I think the Occupy Wall Street movement is so important, whether you're on either side of the discussion, is because I'm a political pundit. I watch the Sunday shows, and the gentleman who they're using as their spokesperson was on the This Week with Christiane Amanpour, and he said to her, well, let's just be honest, I wouldn't be on the show if it hadn't been for the Occupy Wall Street movement. And I could tell that was a ding for her, because she was like, well, we're really working on that. And I'm thinking, you're not really working on that. You're only interested in talking to the people who have power, or the people who you feel have something legitimate to say. And had it not been for that movement, he would never have had these forums to go on and to talk about what the real issues are for working Americans. They're not asking Mary Kay Henry to come on This Week with Christiane Amanpour. So, and I'm not, no dig to you, but I'm saying, so
that's
they
right.
feel like they know what we have to say, but we don't have those forums anymore. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's important to support them
Great.
in any way we can.
The 4 points that you brought up, I agree with. But then, as Mr. Kesey, who started SEIU, was told he was invisible, or whatever the term was,
Yes.
you have another group that's invisible too. What is the union? What is Congress? What the people in this room going to do when 18,000 folks come back from Iraq and Afghanistan? Okay, that's one part of my question. The other part of the question is, are you going to, not you personally, but as a unionism, are you going to find good jobs, and Congress and the governors going to find, quote, good jobs,
Right.
or the same jobs for the individuals that, because of what they gave up, cannot perform the functions they had? One thing I'll say about Occupy wherever, and especially Occupy New York, let the folks that are pushing the people and the instigators, as you call them, remember something. The folks on the other side, and it was real graphic when they put it in the newspaper, of the lieutenant or the deputy inspector taking a swing at the guy, or the guy who, quote, got run over by the motorcycle when he actually put his foot out there to get run over, that those are insightful photos. But the folks that they're beating up, and the folks that they're going against, that wear a badge in the union and a uniform, are also their union brothers and sisters. Okay? That's what can't be forgotten.
That's exactly right.
You know, you talk about unionism declining. Some of the strongest unions are the public service unions, such as the police departments, the fire departments,
Yes.
the correction officers,
Yes.
the school systems. There's an article in this paper right here, and I opened it when I came in. It's the New York Post, okay? And it shows a picture on page 6 of a young lady crying because there was a gunman on top of a roof that shot down on a bunch of students as they were exiting a school. I happen to be a paraprofessional at that school in in 1974. Okay? So, we can come up with everything we have to say, we have to align everything, but Cheney's still making his money. He's making it through Halliburton. He's making it not with that mythical toilet bowl and hammer at the Pentagon, but he's making it with everything by moving his company to cover. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. If you're gonna make the product here, then ensure that the folks in this country are the ones that are putting it together. We're not stupid. We're not ignorant, but we're blind. And when we take the blinkers off, people will figure out what's going on. There's always two ways to do it.
Great, thank you very much. There's two more hands, and then should we move on? Great.
As far as supporting the Occupy Now, I think we should join that movement, and in a format in which we teach the leaders how to give them our organizational abilities, how to set up precincts, and how to, while the message is still being formulated, they can start to learn how to organize their individuals, do what we do best, is organize, and show them that. And then as their leaders percolate up, they'll come to us to how to deliver the message. We can do that here.
Great. Did everybody hear the points? That we should support the Occupy movement by helping transmit our organizing ability
Yes.
to help them in the way they're organizing themselves.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
You named 4 agenda items.
Yes.
I suggest the 5th one,
Okay.
and that be to work together to get the union stronger by embracing your fellow Republicans, Tea Party members, and everybody else. If you want to limit it to just the real liberal Democrats, that's fine. But some of us that are moderate Republicans who go both ways on certain issues, I'm sitting here really feeling like, do I belong here? I'm hearing, I feel like it's Republican and it's bad, it's this and it's bad. But when you've got, the country representing all brothers and sisters, I think you need to look at our libertarian brothers and sisters and whatever other organizations there are so that we can all reach out and find common cause. All our money's going, China's going to own everything. No, I can't go buy anything practically made in this country.
Right.
You want jobs in this country, we need to all band together of all political beliefs to come to a strong, united SEIU if that's what we're about. Is that, I ask you, is that what we're about?
Yeah.
Band together.
And I'm absolutely.
And that negative talk, and you talk about that Occupy, I don't mean negative, but the energy. Talk about Occupy. All I see on the news between the different pundits, and my mother watches TV, newspapers, Rush Limbaugh, and everybody else in the world, I get it all, everywhere. They're not structured enough. They look like they're a bunch of crazies joining it during the week, and I don't want to be affiliated with that. I would love to see what Michael suggested, us help them get organized. But you've got every wacko in town, and I don't want to be identified with that. I respect my organization. I would like to see us united go down there as just the SEIU people over here. The politics, the administration, all the way down to Montgomery County, I don't think has the focus on what's really happening, because the money people are controlling our country. They're controlling what they're borrowing from China. They're controlling what you and I as peons get. So yes, I think we should fight and all join together really strong to get what's fair.
Great, thank you. I'm so glad you raised this, because if there is anything I said that made you feel like you didn't belong here, I want to make sure I never say it again.
Thank you.
Because every member in this union belongs here, no matter what their political identification or not. And so I will welcome you giving me specific feedback on things, because we have a very active and aggressive, I would say, Republican Member Advisory Committee that is currently doing outreach to every Republican presidential primary candidate to ask how they feel about these 4 issues as a way to make sure that we hear every voice. So everybody belongs here. And the gift of this union, in my mind, is it's a place in which civic discourse can occur where we disagree with each other, but we respect each other enough to articulate the disagreement, hear each other, and then move forward together on our common fight. So I'm really glad you raised it.
Let me ask you one question. When I'm in the workplace and I'm handing out, which I pay your PAC, I contribute, and I have for I don't know how many years.
To our PAC.
You know, out of my paycheck, they
Yeah.
a few dollars every paycheck. I see the form back here. How do I go to them and say, you're going to support, your $5 is going to support the people, the crazies down on the mall. Your $5 is going to support Isaiah Leggett. Your $5, I mean, or whatever they can contribute. How do I go in the workplace with my more conservative peers? There are peers in my building that will not join the union.
And I think the question we're trying to ask ourselves in SEIU is, can you go to those coworkers and ask them to support good jobs now, everybody pays their fair
Yes.
share, no more cuts.
I can if you're embracing all of us,
Yes.
I
yes,
can.
Yes, we want
That
to
we're
make
all-
that happen.
We're all, and that message needs to
Right.
come through really strongly,
we
that
do.
we all need to work together to help everyone.
That's right, that's right. And that's what our 2012 agenda is about.
Right.
And it's why we will evaluate, just as you did here in Maryland, every candidate against whether they support this agenda. Because we know the election of candidates to public office is not the single solution for working people in this country, right? That we know what we have to do is band together and fight. So I do think hearing every voice is incredibly important, and it's why I'm so proud that I have a chance to interact and listen to members like you all across our country. Because the thing I take away from each one of these conversations is, even though our members are battered and bruised in this economy, when they talk about the work they do, they're incredibly proud of that work. It's the home care worker in LA that I just listened to last week who told me all the things that she does for the clients she serves that's way above the call of duty and way beyond her job description, but she does it because of how much she cares about the elder that she serves. It's the nursing home worker who routinely works through breaks and lunches and way past shift because they want to visit with the resident who has nobody coming to see them because they consider it the loving time. It's the bus driver who told me he loves driving a bus because he can make a kid's day, and that child is the first person that he sees in the morning and the last person they see after school, and he can make or break the child's day, and he's proud to say that he makes it every day. It's the security guard who won dignity on the job and is devoted to keeping other workers safe in what they do. It's the family child care providers who insist on making it crystal clear that they are not babysitters and that they create a community for children who can have a better life in school because of the incredible expertise that our family child care providers. These are the people who believe in a country and believe in our future. And even though we've all been battered and bruised by this economy in the past few decades, we still wake up every single morning proud of the work we do and finding a reason to believe all over again. And it's this kind of optimism that I find all across our union and with every working person that deserves to be nurtured. It deserves to be rewarded. It deserves to be respected, with each one of us bringing our belief and our commitment to the fight that we need to have on behalf of all working people. It is that belief that we all have that we all have value, and that we all deserve respect that's woven into every fiber of the being of this union. And at SEIU, I look forward to working with the SEIU local 500 member leaders in making sure that we create the future for this country that we know every working person deserves. Are you ready to fight with us with that vision for America? Are you ready